So this is college football bowl season, probably the best time of the year. And here the bowl season kicks off with Fresno State and Wyoming. Now in this game, I think Fresno will win big because they will. I had no idea Wyoming was even in a bowl game till now. Next up is Rutgers and UCF. Another really bad game. I think Rutgers will win just because they're in the Big East. Next up is Middle Tennessee State and Southern Miss, another junk game. I am picking Conference USA over the Sun Belt. Now here are where the games start to get better. BYU and Oregon State. Oregon State was so close in upsetting Oregon. I think they should have upsetted Oregon if they didn't commit some stupid penalties and if their defense just played a little bit better. I think Oregon State will win this game. Next up is Utah and Cal. I like Utah in this game because Cal is too inconsistent. Now in the Hawaii Bowl we have Nevada and SMU. Let's go with June Jones' team. June Jones is a very underrated coach and should get a lot more attention. Next up is Boston College USC. USC is playing after Christmas. It's like the first time in 7 years they're playing in this spot. Now Boston College, I know, lost to Notre Dame, and that's why I think they will also lose to USC. Next up is North Carolina and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh should have beat Cincinnati, but they choked at the end. North Carolina has had a pretty good season. They've beat some pretty good teams. I think North Carolina will win this game because Dave Wannstedt is going to choke again. Next up is a coin toss game between Marshall and Ohio. I will go with Ohio. Next up is Kentucky Clemson. Clemson is very underrated. I think they should be playing it would be cool if they would be playing a better team in a bowl game. So Clemson will win easily. It's not going to be a very big contest. Next up are two teams that really don't play much defense, Texas A&M and Georgia. I am going to go with the SEC team, Georgia, because the SEC is a stronger conference, and Texas A&M is not good. Next up is probably the best bowl game until this point is Miami and Wisconsin. Wisconsin has came off a huge win over Hawaii by the score of 51-10. Miami started the season hot, kind of backed away a little bit. It's going to be a good game, and I think Miami will win in a nail-biter. Next up is Arizona and Nebraska. Now, I am so sorry to all Nebraska fans because I totally thought you guys would have gotten blown out by Texas. However, you guys should have won, and you guys also got screwed. That second should not have been put back on the clock. Anyway, I think you guys will win over Arizona. It's going to be a close game, and it's going to be an exciting game as well. And your defensive player, that got the Sioux guy, he should win the Heisman. Next up is UCLA and Temple. I'm assuming Navy will beat Army, therefore UCLA will go to this bowl game. Seriously, I had no idea Temple was in a bowl game till now, and I seriously don't think they have a chance. Next up is another coin toss game between Idaho and Bowling Green. Let's go with Bowling Green in this game. Next up is Missouri and Navy. Navy lost to Hawaii, and because they lost to Hawaii, a team that is not even bowl eligible, I think Missouri will win easily. Next up is Air Force and Houston. I think Houston, if they could make some extra points, I think they will win. And finally, here's a really good game, Oklahoma and Stanford. Oklahoma has had a disappointing year. Everybody will say that. And Bob Stoops will probably not win in a bowl game for another year. Stanford wins. Next up is Minnesota and Iowa State. This is another coin flip game. I think Minnesota will win just because they come from the Big Ten, which is a better conference than the Big 12. Next up is Tennessee and Virginia Tech. Tennessee, I have to admit, has had a pretty good season. They surprised me, and I think they will not surprise me in this game because Virginia Tech is just too good. Next up is the battle of the underrated Northwestern. Yes, Northwestern. They beat Wisconsin and Iowa. Auburn, they played Alabama super close. I think this could be a very good game of the battle of the underrated. However, I think Northwestern will just pull off another miracle win. Next up is Penn State and LSU. Penn State is severely overrated in my opinion. They will get blown out by LSU. Next up is West Virginia and Florida State. Bobby Bowden is probably going to coach his last game right here, and therefore Florida State will probably win. Next up is Ole Miss and Oklahoma State, two overrated teams that were ranked in the top 10 at the beginning of the season. I think Ole Miss will win this game just because I like their offense better than Oklahoma State. Next up is East Carolina and Arkansas. East Carolina is the Conference USA champions. I think they will knock off Arkansas, but Arkansas could always win. Next up is UConn at South Carolina. South Carolina has no offense, and therefore they will lose to UConn. Next up is Northern Illinois and South Florida. I think South Florida will win easily. Now here is Central Michigan and Troy. Central Michigan is the best team from Michigan. They will win easily. They should be ranked in the top 20 at the end of the season. And Texas Tech, Michigan State. Let's go at Texas Tech. Now here are the BCS games, Oregon and Ohio State. I'm going to go at Oregon, but this game is going to be very close because Oregon is facing a good defense. Ohio State is probably the best defense Oregon will face this year besides Boise. And Ohio State is going to really bring the pressure on Jeremiah Masoli. But I still think Oregon will win by a field goal. Next up are the Gators and the Bearcats. Tim Tebow is mad. He wants to win badly, and I think he will do so. They will win big. Next up is TCU and Boise State. I think it's a ripoff to both teams that they have to play each other for the 4th time in like 10 years. Anyway, I think TCU is really good. I think they should be in the national championship game, and I think they will win. Next up is Iowa and Georgia Tech. Iowa, seriously? I think Georgia Tech will blow out Iowa. Now in the national championship game, Texas and Alabama. I'm going to cheer for Alabama to blow out Texas, but I do not think that will happen. So if Mark Ingram wins the Heisman this Saturday, I think Texas will win. If Mark Ingram does not win the Heisman, I think Alabama will win. But hopefully Alabama wins big. So those are my picks for the college football bowl season, 2009 to 2010.